Welcome to Permission to Shift, the show that helps you remove limits, transform fear, and get into a life you're excited to live. Today's guest is Jeff Sheehan. Jeff has over 40 years of high-tech global sales, marketing, and advertising experience with top-level Fortune 500 companies, including Intel, Apple Computers, IBM, Hewlett-Packard, and AT&T. He is an IBM influencer and futurist, a social selling and marketing consultant, and job search mentor. He is also the co-author of the book Hired: Paths to Employment in the Social Media Era. With over 320,000 followers on Twitter and 24,000 connections on LinkedIn, Jeff has been listed among the top 50 people most retweeted in the world, and his accolades have been sung by mid-sized marketers, top 50 over 50 marketing thought leaders, and he was listed as one of the world's top 100 marketing leaders for 2017 in the Octo Leader Twitter Award list. Jeff is a nationally renowned speaker on thought leadership, the use of LinkedIn, personal branding, social media, marketing, and technology. Jeff, it is so good to have you here. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
For people who have never met you before, who are in my audience, who are just joining and hearing you for the first time today, can you give them a little bit of an idea about how you got where you are and became a master of networking, and the biggest shift that you had to make to get there?
Okay, as you're probably aware, Rihanna, I spent many decades in high technology marketing and sales. I traveled the world. I work for a company now, sales, I think there were 15 billion with 80,000 employees. And I was a marketing manager and global account manager there, various roles and responsibilities over the years. But cumulatively, probably had responsibility for $500 million in sales over my tenure with people. Some direct reports, but mostly dotted line throughout the world, and worked with some of the world's largest companies, including Intel, Hewlett-Packard, Dell, IBM, Cisco Systems, just to name a few. There are others I can't name due to NDAs, but nevertheless, fascinating career. We were at the leading edge of technology. I was involved in microprocessor development work, wireless. I was there at 802.11 when cell phones initially were rolled out with AT&T and Motorola. Just absolutely phenomenal. I remember calling Bell Labs up in New Jersey and working with them through the rep that we had up there on some of the development, because we supplied the company I worked for the filters and a lot of the internal components for the various cell phones that are out there. So I was at the leading edge of that at the beginning in some respects. So just phenomenal as far as my experience in that. And then what happened, that came to a screeching halt 12 years ago when I was downsized. And I had a discussion about this the other day with the Irish ambassador in the United States. We were talking about what happens after you transitioned out of a position you had for so many years. And he is going to be retiring sometime next year. We're talking about they take away all the perks, the company car, in his particular case, the house, but so many things. And all of a sudden it comes to a screeching halt. And you have to reinvent yourself. You have to do other things. And we're talking about his reinvention, what he plans on doing after he retires from the diplomatic service. And in my particular case, I was forced into a situation where I didn't want to stay in that business. It was very, very difficult in so many respects. Again, the travel was, I would say, a killer. I really enjoyed it, but I didn't get much sleep because I was constantly going to the Far East. And you work both sides of the clock as far as getting in touch with people and trying to do the work while you're over in Asia. So it was very, very trying, and also, like I said, stressful from a standpoint of the pressures in that industry, working with some of the world's leading brands and trying to make sure that you had on-time deliveries to them, that there weren't any supply constraints. And we all know what's going on now with the supply chain issues here in the United States. That was the run-of-the-mill, the norm in the electronics industry, because of the fact that manufacturing capacity was somewhat limited due to the fact that there were always pricing pressures. So very difficult for companies to make investments into plant and equipment, knowing that the ROI would probably not be there initially, if at ever, in the future, because of the fact that the pricing price reduction pressures, which is so tremendous. So
Mm-hmm.
again, a lot of pressure in that. And I was glad that I walked away with it from that industry in so many respects, although I do miss it. But at that time, I was forced to reinvent myself, as alluded to, and went out and said, I have a love for marketing. I have a master's degree in marketing. I'd always been in marketing one way or the other, whether through sales or marketing directly for many, many years, and decided this is what I wanted to do. I fully embraced social media. I've been on LinkedIn since 2006, I think it is, so 15 years. So
You're
a
an
very,
old
very long
hat.
time. Yeah, and then on Twitter, 12 years. So I embraced those two platforms, got into some others and decided this is what I'm going to do. So with that, I started doing things mostly on a volunteer basis and working and teaching people how to use LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Google, social media overall, as well as personal branding and networking for the job search. And it's been now uh, 12 years or so, almost 12 years in January, that I started doing this. I've spoken to countless thousands and met with many people one-on-one to help them with their journey in that particular area. It's 99.5% philanthropic, volunteer, and helping these individuals. It's been very rewarding. I met some phenomenal people over the years, and it makes you feel good about yourself, a sense of purpose getting up in the day, and also using my expertise or what I've learned in that particular area to help the lives of others. So again, that was the largest pivot that I had to make, is going from a nice, I wouldn't say cushy, but it was because of a lot of challenges, corporate job with a very, very large organization where I was literally spoon-fed by geishas in Japan. And I went to some of the finest restaurants, had a phenomenal lifestyle in the corporate world, and had to pivot to now making my own coffee, putting the cream of the coffee at Starbucks. So totally different world. But it's been fascinating. And I pivoted many times since and continue to pivot, because the fact is that the market continues to evolve, and I continue to evolve as an individual, trying to discover what I really want to do when I grow up. And I look at others out there, Philip Kotler, and he's the so-called dean of marketing. He wrote the textbooks and the textbooks which I used in grad school. And he's a professor, or was, I should say, emeritus at Northwestern University. Had the privilege of having him teach a class that I was at Northwestern for a seminar program, a week-long program. And a really nice guy, but he's 90 years old. He's still going strong. Tom Peters, who I admire, he wrote In Search of Excellence. He's really the godfather of personal branding, and he's out there at 80 years of age approximately, still going strong in writing, speaking, and doing all kinds of things. So I look up to these people and try to emulate them in some respects, but just to keep going. I can't see retiring and not, hanging up the cleats or just traveling all the time. Although I'd love to travel, it's just not in my DNA to stop working.
Mhm. When people are talking to you, and you said so many really impactful things, but I'd love to look at the pivot points. And when people
Right.
come to you, are they trapped in some way and you're helping them brand so they can move forward? Or what are they looking for really when they come to you for this personal branding?
They're trapped. They're like deer in headlights. They have no idea of what they're doing. They're down and out in so many respects. Their self-esteem, self-confidence has been literally sucked from them because of the fact that in so many cases, particularly job seekers, have been beaten up. They've submitted application after application through the job portals and got absolutely nowhere. They've gotten very few responses in most cases, or received very few responses. They've had virtually no interviews. So what I try to do is I try to encourage them, try to help them think that there are better days ahead. One of the ways of doing that is through networking. You don't rely on the job portals on a day in and day basis. Otherwise, you go crazy, because it's literally a black hole in so many respects. You might be that 1 in 1,000 that they look out and seek for employment, or interviews, I should say, but it doesn't happen very frequently. For instance, there's one young guy I met with. I met with him because of the fact that someone that had spoken at the career ministry that I used to run here in Atlanta asked me if I'd meet with him. So I wanted to meet him for coffee. And I said to him, I said, "What have you been doing?" He said, not, I've applied here and I've applied there. I said, how long have you been looking? He said, over a year. I said, when was the last time you had an interview? He said it was 8 or 9 months ago. I said, who have you applied to? And he gave me a list of companies that he applied to. So with that, I said to him, what have you done with these companies? He said, well, I've just gone through and applied through their job portals online. And I said, what results have you said? Absolutely nothing. Like I said, no interviews or anything in months. So I said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to draft an email to, and he had a list of companies, and I wanted him to pick one at the top because of the fact that if he got a job at this company, this is pre-pandemic, it was like winning the lottery. I tell you not. A huge company here in Atlanta, 80,000 employees. The benefits are just unbelievable. Okay, and phenomenal, off the charts. So I said to him, "What have you done with this company?" He said, "I applied and nothing." So draft that email. And I wanted to outline the first paragraph is introducing yourself and saying, I wanted to reach out to you because I really like to work for your organization. I've been a fan of it for so many years. And I have a real passion for the industry, real passion for your company. Second paragraph, outlining how you align with that company, why you think you'd be a good fit, what benefits do you bring to them, or what problems do you solve? And he did that. And the third paragraph would be, I'd like to meet you for coffee or whatever. So he drafted that. He sent it back to me. In the meantime, he went out and he researched and found out who the VP of marketing was for this organization. And he had that email information. So I blessed it and I sent it back to him. I said, go for it. So what he did is he had found the email address. He sent it to the VP of this, remember, 80,000 employee organization, a Fortune 100 here in Atlanta. And within 3-hour time frame, something like that, he received an email back from the VP of this major organization indicating he was so impressed with what he had done and thinking outside the box that he had referred his resume and contact information on to two of his subordinates. So I was thrilled with that. He told me that. And about a month later, I think it was about a month, I was sitting there at one of my home offices, and my home offices used to be Starbucks, but now it's changed because you can't get into Starbucks to sit down there. So I'm sitting there in my Starbucks office. All of a sudden, I get a text message. And the text message said, Jeff, I landed. So I said, you did? Phenomenal. Congratulations. So he was so excited. It's like he won the lottery. Now, the thing is, he started there, went to work for, I'm not sure if he's still employed there or not because they had significant cutbacks during the pandemic, but hopefully he is. He was well qualified. He had a great track record. But I was so happy for him because he had a wife who had a somewhat limited income job and 2 kids that were about to go to college. So he really needed help. He needed that encouragement. So I helped give him the encouragement. I helped steer him in the right direction with regard to his job search and networking and going for the top, going for the jugular, as I've said many times when I speak to people face-to-face or on virtual meetings for job seekers. Go for the jugular. Don't be afraid. I remember when I was first downsized 12 years ago, and I went to these various job networking meetings, and they'd always say, be careful that you don't tick off the HR people. Well, I beg to differ. You have to, in this day and age, think outside the box. You have to do whatever it takes to actually go out and find a job through whatever resource you have to use. Another situation is a friend of mine from the National Speakers Association. His name is Gene Greisman. Gene is a remarkable individual, and he actually contributed to the book that I helped write about 7-8 years ago. And at that time, Gene and I were talking. He shared a story with me, and I put it in the book. Is basically his daughter was looking for work, and what she did, she wanted a job so badly with this company, and she wanted a job in sales. So she parked her car in front of this building, and she observed who was going to and from. She knew who the VP of sales was because she had done her copious amount of research on the company. And so what she did one day, she got up the gall that she actually followed this guy into the lobby of the building for this particular company. And she went up to him, shook his hand, introduced herself. She said, so-and-so, my name is so-and-so. And I tell you what, I'm looking for a job in sales with your company. I'd very much like to sit down and talk to you. Well, what happened is that guy gave her the time to speak to her. And shortly thereafter, a few days she received a job offer from the company and went to work for them. But this is all because of the fact that she thought outside the box as to what she was doing. Another story I'd like to share is regard to pivoting. I worked on my first career job was with Boston Safe Deposit Trust Company in Boston. I was a manager trainee in the real estate department, and it's now Bank of New York Mellon. And I was down, I had been there for 2 years. I really wanted to get to high technology marketing and sales. The reason being, it had always been part of my DNA. My father turned down a job with Digital Equipment Corporation back when I was very, very young, because he didn't want to move. He didn't want to travel 40 miles each direction to go there. But he would have been employee like number 7. Digital Equipment went on to stardom in the MIDI computer era and was subsequently bought by Compaq. And after having windfalls for a number of employees. So my father would have been all set if you're going to work for digital. So it always been in my background to get into high technology. So I was down in Virgin Islands on vacation, a couple of my buddies. It was a blizzard of 78, and the airport had been shut down for many days because of the blizzard of 78. We were on one of the first flights out of there to San Juan, Puerto Rico. So we got into San Juan, he had to take a puddle jump over to St. Thomas. So a guy got on with his wife and daughter at that time, and he said, "Hi, how are you?" I said, "Hi, how are you?" So we got off, and it so happened that he checked into the same hotel, French's Reef in St. Thomas. He was right in front of me. "Hi, how are you?" And about 2 days later, we're out in the water there in St. Thomas. And again, "Hi, how are you?" We struck up a conversation. And I said to him, he asked me actually, "What are you doing? What are you down here for?" I said, "On vacation." "What do you do?" I said, "I work for Boston Safe Deposit Trust Company, management trainee. However, I've been there 2 years and I'm looking to get into high technology marketing and sales." So he said, "Well, guess what? I'm the co-founder of a high technology company in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, which is 26 miles from downtown Boston, where the Boston Marathon starts." So he said, "I'll give you my business card when you get back there. Why don't you give me a call?" So I did that. Went out and interviewed with him and his other co-founder, as well as several of the subordinates. 2 days later, a job offer selling $7,000 moisture analyzers, infrared moisture analyzers. I knew absolutely nothing about that, but he was the key individual who set me on a path in high technology marketing and sales due to that serendipitous divine intervention moment. I shouldn't have been there, quite honestly, because the planes had been stopped for a week or so. We were on one of the first planes that had out of Logan. And that meeting set me on a path for many decades in high technology marketing and sales. Other serendipitous divine intervention moments in my life as well that I consider pivot points that have really been instrumental in that. But I always emphasize to people, job hunters and everyone else, always talk to strangers, because of the fact that you never know in talking to someone where it's going to lead to. Discussions may not go anywhere, but you never know who you're going to be connecting with that can literally change your life. The same on social media. If you reach out to people, you support them, you never know where that's going to lead. I think I shared with you earlier this week, I had a private breakfast meeting with the Irish Embassy in the United States. It was just absolutely phenomenal. And it was he, as well as the assistant consulate general person who just started here in Atlanta about 3 weeks ago, for breakfast downtown Atlanta. So we were talking, and he's very familiar with me and had been engaging with me for several years over Twitter. I've been supporting him and what he's done. So he reached out of the blue and contacted me. He said he was going to be in Atlanta. Would I like to have breakfast? So I said, sure. But I met with him for an hour and the assistant there. It was just absolutely phenomenal. But that was because of reaching out and engaging with someone on Twitter and trying to assist them with regard to getting the word out. He's an avid poet. He's about to release a book in January that deals with Ulysses and his interpretation of that manuscript. And he's just an amazing individual. We were there talking about Angela Merkel, different people, leaders throughout the world. Just a fascinating conversation with him that someone, you just never know who you're going to meet, quite honestly.
Well, one thing before I ask you the question, please send me the title of his book. We'll drop it in our comments under this video. And anybody out there, anybody who's watching this video, regardless of when or where, you can get that video or that that book. Go down there, visit, support. That sounds amazing. And then second, what you're saying, really, I see a theme. And the theme is you get to put yourself out there. It isn't enough to hide behind your screen and, do the safe, I'm going to put myself out there to be found. You actually get to be proactive in that. Is this correct?
Yeah, absolutely. But be proactive in trying to help others and be genuine about it. Quite honestly, and don't look for the boomerang to always come back. Sometimes it comes back, sometimes it doesn't. Quite honestly, another situation I'd like to talk about is there was this young guy here in Atlanta, not too far from where I live. And so what happened? I met him at the Atlanta Tech Village, which is a site for startups here in Atlanta. One time, he reached out to me, so I met with him. Went down there and had coffee, and we talked about what he was doing. And he was with a startup, and they were looking for new customers and what have you. So I met this other guy at a networking meeting, and this other guy shared a similar background in some respects from an educational perspective. They both gone to the same university for one for undergrad, one for graduate school. So after meeting those two individuals, I connected them and said, I think the two of you would get along. I think you'd be great to have in each other's networking circles. Well, about 2 years later, all of a sudden I get a call out of the blue or email. I forget whether it was a call or an email, but he said, geez, I'd like to have you come by and I'll show you my new business, what I'm doing now. So I did that. And I walked in there and he told me, he said, I'm forever grateful to you. I said, grateful for what? He said, you know, that connection you made for me, that literally helped me save my job at that particular time. He said, we ended up landing a contract with him for what he was doing. And it really helped me and my family. I was flabbergasted. I just couldn't believe it. I was so humbled by what he had to say. But I had no idea in the world that I had such an impact on him. So you never know if you reach out there. I've been doing this now for the last year on Twitter, as you're probably aware, and I've tried to support you, Anna. It's called Get Traction for Others campaign. It's nothing, quite honestly, as far as has been financially rewarding to me. No, absolutely not. But I feel good about it because of the fact that with the COVID pandemic, so many people, particularly in the consulting world, people that are authors and speakers, have suffered immeasurably from COVID and what it's done to them. Their livelihoods have literally disappeared. Now I'm at a juncture in my life where it's totally different in so many respects from a standpoint. I've been there, done that, and I have some income that from different sources that I'm not suffering like so many others have, but so many have. So I put that out there about a year ago, and it's been rewarding. And I think it's helped some people get some traction. Maybe a few hundred people look at the posts I put out there, but nevertheless, it's still awareness that they would not have. And maybe if it leads to one opportunity for them, or if it has led to one opportunity, it's all well worth it, seriously. So I try to do that, and from the bottom of my heart, and just nurturing networks and improving relationships with people. Financial gains, it's one thing, but it's not the expectation. It's because of the fact that I've been blessed and fortunate in some respects and compared to others.
So how do people get out of a scarcity mindset and into a mindset of generosity? Because I would imagine that actually helps them in their job search and how they show up because they're not so constricted.
Oh, absolutely. And I learned this trick. I wouldn't say a trick. I learned this, again, after I was downsized. So I started going to networking meetings. I met this one guy. His name is Bob Satarian. And Bob is a guy who was from Boston. So the two of us clicked because we're both, Bostonians. And actually, he worked for a number of years on the same street, believe it or not, when his manufacturing facility where he worked was about 5 doors down from where my father grew up on Tinny Ann Street in Boston. So we really hit it off. And so he was kind of a mentor. He still is a mentor to me. He's in his early 80s now, I believe, or close to it. And he's a mortgage broker. And I swear to God, I've known him for 12 years now. I don't think he sold one mortgage in his life. He's always out there helping people. He helped me make connections. He actually was instrumental in getting me into Holy Spirit Catholic Church, where I eventually became the director of the career ministry, volunteer effort, but a speaking engagement there. And I spoke in front of probably 200 people back a number of years ago. That was a big step for me, a giant leap, seriously, because I had never really spoken in front of large crowds other than maybe 40 or 50 in sales meetings at Parada where I worked. But I started that and really was a catalyst, other than my initial speech in January of some 12 years ago to a church group here, a much smaller group, but he was responsible for that. But he's always been instrumental in helping people in doing what they're doing. Another person is, his name is David Bradford. And David is someone that is absolutely an incredible individual. I'm trying to find his book right here, but he wrote a book called Up Your Game. And it's about the whole essence of giving before you receive and helping others in networking through and upping your game by helping them with their networking efforts. He considers himself one of the most connected people on the face of the earth. Well, I really believe it. The late Larry King wrote the foreword for his book. Eric Schmidt was a contributor who was a former CEO of Google. And Steve Wozniak, who worked for Apple Computer, worked for him at one time. I had the distinct pleasure of interviewing David, I think it was about 7 years ago, for podcasts I was running at that time. And the reason I got to interview him, again, another serendipitous divine intervention moment, while running the career ministry at Holy Spirit Catholic Church, we had a panel of talent acquisition managers. And this is on a Thursday night, I'll never forget this. And this young woman chimed in about all the great things she was seeing and using a tool from HireVue. And what it does is a platform that actually you go out and the job seeker will record a video with, they'll ask some questions, will record this video, and it's circulated among the people interested in the organization. She worked for Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and all she did was tout how great a tool it was. Well, David Bradford, who I'm communicating with via Twitter and to a lesser extent by LinkedIn, was at that time, I think he was the CEO of HireVue, or on the board, I should say. So I went back to him the next day and I said, David, you not believe last night when I was at the career ministry, all the great things that this woman from Children's Healthcare of Atlanta had to say about your company. I couldn't believe it, thinking that I knew someone at HireVue. So I said, David, this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to interview you along with Sarah Torville, who was my co-host at that time, for a podcast we're doing. I'd like to talk about HireVue and what you're doing there, as well as the book that you've just released called Up Your Game. So about 2 days later, I received an email from David that said, sure, you could be I'd love to be a guest on the show. Now, remember, he runs in circles. One thing I forgot to mention is he, along with Meg Whitman, was the co-chair of Mitt Romney's campaign for the Finance Committee for his campaign for president. So he runs in some pretty high-level circles, okay? And here I am, someone that, so far removed from that circle. But
I don't know about that. You're pretty connected.
No. So nevertheless, he agreed to that. It's just wonderful. And what happened is I kept in touch with him, and I've been trying to promote him to the best of my ability from time to time. He's involved in multiple ventures. It still is. And again, he's someone up there in age. Probably doesn't have to work. He just loves working. He loves helping other people. So I had the distinct privilege of meeting with him last March out in Provo, Utah, for a breakfast meeting of an hour or so with him. Finally meet him after so many years. It's like I'd known him all my life. Similar to the Irish ambassador, I felt like I'd known him all my life and just really hit it off with him on a face-to-face perspective. And I will ever be grateful to him as we celebrate Thanksgiving Day today for some of the things that he has done, some of the connections, and some of the just perspective on life that he, as well as Bob Satarian, have given me in trying to help others and doing it sincerely and genuinely, and don't expect anything in return.
What would you say to somebody who's listening to this and they are 100% locked in their heads in a space of fear, and they're thinking, oh, well, fine, you as this high level executive, of course you can talk to these people, but me, I have no resume. Why would they talk to me? And they're in that space in their head, what would you say to them?
Well, first of all, they have to get over themselves. And I still suffer, I could quite honestly, with the imposter syndrome in so many respects, is thinking that should I really be out there and what have you? Because I'm pretty humble in so many regards, and it's difficult overcoming that, quite honestly. And I think if you ask a lot of speakers, they do suffer from that. But you have to be out there. You can't sit on the sidelines. If you sit at home and pontificate and feel sorry for yourself, you'll never accomplish anything. So you have to get out there, take chances. Life is about chances. And if you just sit back, I'm sorry, it's not going to come to you. You have to make things happen. And I've heard over the years, and God love these people, but they think that some magical divine moment is going to come to them. They have to make that moment in so many cases. There will be intersections, will be divine interventions of that. But unless you put yourself out there, that is absolutely never going to happen. So you have to go out there and network with people and put your best face forward and realize that if you can solve a problem, then that person will talk to you because they're all cognizant. They want to increase revenues or they want to save costs within companies. So the top line and the bottom line are critical, but you have to clearly demonstrate that you have some type of unique proposition, a unique selling proposition or value proposition that you bring to the party. You can't just go in there as a generalist, but you have to offer a way of solving a problem that they currently have. So you really have to go out and research the living daylights out of a company and the individuals that you're going to be talking to and find out what are their pain points and address those in everything that you do. And they will talk to you regardless of their levels. But go to the top. Don't start at the bottom and try to go up because you'll get nowhere. Impress the people at the VP or the C level within organizations, and everything else will happen. They're more difficult to get to. And don't be afraid of picking up the phone. Don't be afraid of going out there. The phone hasn't died. The phone is still there. We now have cell phones instead of landlines. But don't be afraid of that. Get up in the morning and try to reach out to these people very early. Most executives that start the days very early, and they're open to discussions in some respects if you have a solution for a problem that they have.
Mm-hmm. So the excuse, and I remember when my coach had me start calling people, I thought I was going to throw up. And the excuse I used was, I don't want to waste their time.
Right. I don't think that way.
That?
Yeah, and I totally understand your experience with cold calling. I want to share a story for you. For a short period of time, 1 year actually, I was a stockbroker. So what happened is I walked in there, and I thought I was going to get all kinds of qualified leads to make calls. So I sat down, and there was nothing there except for a phone book. I said, "Where are the qualified leads?" "Oh, you have to buy some leads, and they're not qualified. You have to work them. But here is the way that you're going to get your business." But the phone book, I swear to God, this is the honest to God truth in it. I was petrified. I never made cold calls to speak of. And I went into the restroom, and I literally cried my eyes out thinking, I can't do this. There's no way that I can pick up the phone, just go through names in the phone book and make calls to them, say, "Hi, you need to do business with me." So I finally got the gall or developed the courage to do it. And I became fairly decent at it. I made hundreds of phone calls a day and maybe 20, 30 connections with people. But it's a numbers game in the brokerage business. So I did that. I opened up 242 accounts, I think, in my first year. They, all types and all kinds of accounts. I eventually resigned because of the fact that I couldn't believe in the ethics of the company and things that they were doing. So I got out of there as quickly as I could. But nevertheless, I took a situation, I made the best of it. And I was scared to death, quite honestly, just like you. I was lucky that I didn't vomit, but it's pretty close to it, quite honestly, because of the fact that it can be so intimidating. What I would highly suggest that people do, particularly as job seekers, or they're fearful, is they join Toastmasters. Now, I've been in Toastmasters for 10 years, a global organization of 360,000 people, a nonprofit, very inexpensive. I think it's about $140 a year. But you go to meetings 1 hour a week, you learn how to become a better speaker, better leader, and better networker. I still have my training wheels on after 10 years. I still have arms, ahs, butts, and what have you. So be it. I try my best. Never a perfect speech. I heard that words of wisdom from Tom Peters. He's spoken countless thousands of times. He's never had a perfect speech. So I never anticipate I will have a perfect speech, but I keep trying. But I would highly advocate that any individual that's contemplating going out there, making cold calls or speaking or trying to attract business, that they try Toastmasters, because the fact that it will help up their game.
Hilarious that you bring up Toastmasters. A year and a half ago, I went to a Toastmasters meeting.
Oh, you
And
do?
I ended up joining only because I did not want them to call on me to introduce myself anymore, because I was going to have a heart attack. That's how bad I was at talking to strangers and putting myself, and the group was maybe 15 people.
Right.
And I couldn't even introduce myself without stuttering, going blank, losing my spot, feeling like I wanted to melt into the floor. It was awful. And now I can, if they called me and said, hey, can you give a speech tomorrow? I would be able to figure out a speech and make a speech.
Oh, phenomenal. Where's the club located?
So I did it very deliberately. I joined the first online only club in India.
Okay.
So I joined that club. I very much recognized that I had troubles with certain accents, and I thought, I am going to throw myself into the fire. And these are the most amazing folks in the club ever. And it has been wonderful for me. And they help me so much. They're just wonderful.
Oh,
It's called the
phenomenal.
Pros and Cons Collective.
You'll have to come to our Saturday morning meeting one time.
I would
It's
love
at
to.
10 a.m. It's early your time. It's 8 a.m. I think out in Western Canada. But nevertheless, you ought to join us some Saturday morning
I would love it.
for one of the clubs. And the other one I belong to is actually two clubs. We meet at Tuesday nights at 6:30 Eastern time. So
Nice.
You're welcome to come to those. It's just a phenomenal organization, which I highly recommend to everyone. You'd never know. I mean, your speaking ability is just quite impeccable in some respects. So you're doing a great job.
Well,
It
I
really
have
helps
had great
people.
mentors.
Yes, absolutely. So, but I highly suggest that for everyone. But they have to get off the duff. They have to go out there and they have to participate in these things. There's no reason why they can't, even because the cost is so little.
Mm-hmm.
But it will help them, and it will help them networking with people for such a huge global organization. I mean, here in Atlanta, I think we had the last kind of about 3,500 members. I met some phenomenal people from all walks of life.
Yes.
Quite honestly, that's what's phenomenal about Toastmasters. People from that are just starting out in their careers or with what they're trying to do, and people that are seasoned veterans, accomplished speakers, people out there making six figures in some cases or more as professional speakers that are still involved in Toastmasters because of the fact that it does help them up their game and perfect their skills.
Yeah, and the people are so giving that I've encountered.
Yeah,
very,
absolutely.
very giving.
Yeah, I've met. I don't think I've met anyone that really was obnoxious within the organization. They do care about other people. I mean, some have this set in their ways with regard to the way that they lead groups and things like that. But you have to see that their intent is good and just try to overcome some of their personality quirks. Okay. You want to call it that.
And at this point, I do have to give a shout out to Raj Pandian, who is the president of our club. He's incredible. And I would love anybody who's watching this to join my club as well. We'll throw all those links down under the video. Pop on in. We would love to see you. And that brings me back to when people are stuck in their heads and the just go for it might not be working. What are some small steps that they can do to help get themselves? I mean, they can join Toastmasters or some sort of club so they get used to just speaking and being seen. What else can they do?
Okay. And again, I hate to get back to people I've met up. I actually had the privilege of interviewing this woman. Her name is Lorraine Quay. Secrets of a Strong Mind. Okay.
Oh, hold on.
Okay, super. You have the. Okay, so you connected with Lorraine.
I did. Oh, phenomenal woman.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Former counterintelligence officer for the FBI for about 25 years or so. Did some unbelievable things. Just the opening of the book is well worth the read because of the fact that she subjected herself to a near-death experience in some respects. But she's just phenomenal. So read about her, developing a tough mind. You have to develop that. You have to also exercise. It's so important that you have a positive mindset and you get up off your duff and go out there and don't think of life as a pity party, but you have to really develop that sense of optimism and moving forward. work with others. You need a shoulder to cry on, find that shoulder, or you need people to help you. Find those people that are going to be supportive of you under all circumstances. It's so critically important that you can talk to people and share what you're going through. That's why these career ministries are so valuable here in Atlanta, and why I've participated over the years in them and try to help them, because it does encourage people. You have to be an encourager, not a discourager. And you need to find those people that will encourage you and will support you along the way and try to give you advice. And not looking, the advice that they're giving you, it's not because they see a financial windfall in you, but they recognize you as an individual, and they're trying to do whatever they possibly can to support you in your endeavors.
Jeff, if somebody's watching this and they're thinking, I absolutely have to get in touch with this guy, do you do coaching? Do you have programs? How can people reach you and work with you?
Basically, I'm open to working with individuals or companies, and I'm working on some coaching programs right now. As a matter of fact, some online. One thing I've learned over the years is, from a coaching perspective, is it's always best if you have something, and you've done a great job of this, Hannah, having something that is out there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you're not always chasing your tail. I think the mistake that so many coaches make is they don't have anything. They don't have that book to sell. They don't have that coaching program to sell that is out there generating revenue 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or some other source of income. It's critical, because otherwise you're chasing your tail. You're always looking for that next coaching assignment. And, God forbid, if you ever get sick and you end up in the hospital, that coaching program or that client could disappear in a nanosecond. So if you're structured to take the initiative to develop a program, a coaching program, or something else that resides online, that is out there generating revenue, it is really quite important for your overall survival moving forward.
Mm. Thank you so much for your time today, Jeff. It has been an absolute delight talking to you, and thank you for sharing all of your wisdom.
Oh, thank you for reaching out, Anna. I greatly appreciate it. And as you know, I'm out here to try to support you and others within your circle as well. And I'm glad some of these things have worked out, the connections. I know that you interviewed Sean. I tried to help promote that. I think the world of him. And I'm glad to see you with Lorraine. I have some others that I have coming your way, and we'll try to help you the best of my ability. But I really appreciate
Keep
that.
watching.
And certainly this works great for Thanksgiving Day, to give my gratitude to you and reaching out to me to be on your show.
Thank you so much, Jeff.